أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وصحبه الأخيار المنتجبين وعلى جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. We'll talk about حب الدنيا or the love for this world. When we say حب الدنيا, mainly we mean the love, the attachment to this world in the sense or the dimension of this world that is devoid of God, the material dimension that does not have any connection with God, or that we don't see through any connection with God. Every love that attracts us, every love that fills our hearts or attracts our hearts, essentially can take two degrees or one of two degrees. One degree is the degree where this love or this attachment that you have in your heart, it becomes the basis for your interactions. It becomes the basis for your life, for your relationships, for your actions, for whatever you do. So basically, you go and you do these things, and then you go back to that base that is the love that you have. And another degree is the degree where actually this love overwhelms you. It takes all of your conscience. It takes all of your attention, such that nothing actually distracts you from it. And I'll give two applications. One application of this love is the love that you have for God. The love that you have for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The same thing applies. Two degrees. One degree is the degree of the believers. The believers, inshallah, like yourselves. That love that we have is in such a way that those true believers, they purified their hearts and they direct their hearts towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they experience the love of God in their hearts. But sometimes they might forget. Sometimes they might be distracted. So they might, for example, go and have a meal. They might walk on the street. They might go and play a game maybe. So they get distracted from that remembrance of the love for God that they have in their hearts. But then they return back to that love. Okay? So this is an example of, inshallah, the majority of the believers. So there is this kind of temporary distraction that could happen, but they return to that love, to that attention. The higher level is what? Is the level of the saints, the level of the prophets, the level of the imams. Like the level of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, where he would say, ما رأيت شيئا إلا ورأيت الله معه وقبله وبعده وفيه. I haven't seen anything except that I saw God in it. And before it, with it, after it, in it. Meaning that this love for God, it attracted the conscience of those people to the extent that they can't see anything but God in anything that they look at. Anything that their sight lays on, there is God. To them, there is God. They see God. When they see people, when they meet people, when they interact with people, they're interacting with the servants of God. When they look at anything around them, that's the creation of God. That was there because of the will of God. That is sustained by the power and the will of God. They see God in everything. That's the level of love that they have, and nothing really distracts them from it. The meal that I like, that I might be having, that distracts me from the love of God, those people, they see in that meal the blessing of God. They see the greatness of God. They see the generosity and the mercy of God. So, this is the level where the connection of Allah, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is always embodied around them, to those people. That's an application of love. There's another application of love. The love for dunya. The love for this world. And as I said, we mean the love of this world that is devoid of God. The love of dunya, the same thing. One level is that you have this love to this world, for this world in your heart. You see, you're connected to it. You're attached to it. It forms the basis of your behaviors, your actions, your plans, your relationships. When you move, you do it because of certain interests, personal interests. When you rest, you rest because it gives you a certain interest, personal interest. When you pray because it gives you a certain personal interest. حب الدنيا. Even if you do acts of worship, you might be doing them because حب الدنيا, the love for this world, has formed the basis in your heart for your life. But yes, sometimes the person who loves this dunya might be distracted by what? By a salat. They might be directed to God in a certain salat. They might attain khushu'. They might be focusing. But they return back to their love for dunya when they return back to their normal life. Yes, they would fast, maybe in the month of Ramadan. They would be attentive to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this is temporary. This is the exception. They return back to the basis that overwhelmed or that took over their hearts. So these good acts are like slips, are like accidents. That person returns back to the love for dunya. And there's obviously a more dangerous level, and that is when the love for this dunya overwhelms your heart. Like Amir al-Mu'mineen was to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or like Allah was to Amir al-Mu'mineen. Like Amir al-Mu'mineen, where he would say, when I look at anything, I see God. The person who loves dunya to that degree says that I don't look at anything except that I see dunya, except that I see interest, except that I see this love for the material world that is empty of anything spiritual. Even salat. I pray because it gives me a certain prestige. I fast because I want to have a good reputation in my family or the community that I'm in. I give charity because I want to be seen. I want to pile up fame. Every single thing that this person does becomes what? Serving the purpose of their own interests, their love for dunya. Obviously, the second level, this degree, is much more dangerous than the previous degree. Much more dangerous. A narration attributed to the Holy Messenger of God, Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that he said, حُبُّ الدُّنْيَا رَأْسُ كُلِّ خَطِيئَةٍ. The love for this world, for this material world, is the root of every sin. Think about any sin that anyone could make. The root of it, in essence, is this love for the material things in this world that are devoid of God. That connection. That drives someone to sin. That. رَأْسُ كُلِّ خَطِيئَةٍ. That's really the root cause. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, in a narration, he would say about how dangerous, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Muhammad, how dangerous the love for dunya is. Listen what he says, مَثَلُ الدُّنْيَا كَمَثَلِ مَاءِ الْبَحْرِ كُلَّمَا شَرِبَ مِنْهُ الْعَطْشَانِ ازْدَادَ عَطَشًا حَتَّى يَقْتُلَهُ. Imam Sadiq said, the example of the world, the lowly world we're talking about, is like the sea water. The more a thirsty person drinks from it, the thirstier he becomes until it kills him. So don't say, I'll take this handful of the world for now and then I'll repent and then I'll leave it. For now I'll pay charity so that I gain some fame, but later I'll repent to God. Later I'll return to God after I have attained something. Let me now deal with this haram transaction, impermissible transaction, just for now to sort myself out. Tomorrow, inshallah, I'll return to God. No. It's like the sea water. When you drink a little, makes you more thirsty, makes you want more. It won't stop. And you don't know whether you'll live till tomorrow. Very dangerous. Hubbud dunya is very, very dangerous. So this tells us that the heart, our heart, cannot combine two loves. Our heart cannot combine the love for God and the love for this dunya. They cannot be combined. Either that your heart accepts the love for God wholeheartedly or accepts the love for this world wholeheartedly. They cannot be mixed. They cannot be mixed. The love for this world, it even empties the acts of worship that you do. from that spirituality, from that ascension to God. It empties the fasting. It empties any effort that you make, hajj, anything that you make. When you have this love for dunya, it doesn't achieve its purpose. It doesn't achieve the purpose of ascending to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Actually, it gets you probably even further from God, distracts you from God. Now, when we say dunya, what is this dunya that we're talking about? What is this reprehensible world that we're talking about? Is it really our eating and drinking and seeking a dignified earning, for example? Is this dunya? Is this the reprehensible love for dunya? Is this love for dunya in the first place? A narration from the Messenger of God, so that we understand basically what is condemned here. What is being condemned? So we don't misunderstand. A narration suggests that Rasulullah said, Al-ibadatu sab'una juz'a. Worship is 70 parts. The best of its parts is talabul halal, seeking the halal, seeking what is lawful. Seeking the lawful, seeking the provision from God by the means that God legislated, that God permitted. That is not hubbud dunya. That is not you following the material lowly world. That is ibadah. That is worship. That is obedience to God. That is worshipping God actually. So that answers those people who suggested or thought that, look, hubbud dunya means that I actually, wear presentably. No, I shouldn't. I should mess myself up. That I should go and seek a dignified earn. No. I should live in poverty. We should be a poor society, for example. That's a big misunderstanding. I shouldn't do well at school or at uni. That's a grave misunderstanding. No, you should seek these, but you should seek them for the sake of God. You should seek them in the halal way, in the permissible way. We understand this from the Holy Quran and the narrations from our Messenger of God and the Imams, that the reprehensible attachment to dunya, the reprehensible love for dunya is our immersion in it, is our attachment to it, to the extent that the main concern we have is it. If I tell you now, okay, today, this hour is your last hour in this world. What is the first thing that comes to your mind? What concerns you the most? What is it? What is it? If it is something of this world, you should be concerned then about your afterlife. If it is something of this world, it is, what should I do with my business? What should I do with my money? What should I do with the things that I've accumulated? What will people say about me? Will I have a good reputation? Will people speak well about me? That's what I care about. I don't think about God and afterlife and what's coming after. Okay, that tells you maybe what concerns you. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam also in a narration, he would say, إِيَّاكَ وَحُبُّ الدُّنْيَا فَإِنَّهَا أَصْلُ كُلِّ خَطِيئَةٍ وَمَعْدِنُ كُلِّ بَلِيَّةٍ. Beware of the loving of this world. Beware of loving this world. Meaning what now? We understand. Meaning the attachment to it, the immersion in it. Yes, to the extent that we see this attachment as the center of our lives, as the basis for our lives. Beware of that, Imams say. For it is the origin of every sin and the source of every calamity. Love for this world. Obviously, the narrations tell us how we should look at this world. We should not disqualify it. We should not abandon it. This is a life that God created us in. It's a blessing. But we need to understand what Islam wanted us to understand about this world. That it is only a passage to the afterlife, not more. Not more. And treat it as such. Treat it as a passage to the afterlife. Don't treat it as it is the destination. It is where I will be forever. It is something that is worth sacrificing everything for. No, it's the path. You wouldn't, while you're waiting at the airport for your flight, you wouldn't start planning for living in the airport for years and years and years. You'd think it's a 2-hour wait and I'll have to spend these 2 hours in a way that prepares me well for the trip. That's how the wise people act. In a way that makes your trip worthwhile, makes your journey successful and good. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen in a narration, he would say, فَإِنَّ الدُّنْيَا لَمْ تُخْلَقْ لَكُمْ دَارَ الْمَقَامِ. This world was not created for you as a permanent home, but rather it was created for you as a passage, so that you may prepare provisions of your deeds from it to the eternal home. This is how we should understand this dunya. This dunya is very important, brothers and sisters. It's very important. It's insignificant, yes, in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala compared to akhirah. But it is very important. It is the only opportunity we have to build our afterlife. And that's a massive resource that we have. It's a massive opportunity that we have. And we should take advantage of it. What is the result of this vision? What is the result of this Islamic vision about the world and the afterlife? Is that we live a balanced life. We live a balanced life. I'll mention this narration, I'll finish with it, inshallah. A narration from one of the companions of Imam Sadiq, he would say to the Imam, "Oh Imam, we love dunya. Imam, we love dunya. We love this material world, this lowly world." The Imam asked, "And what are you doing in this dunya?" ماذا تصنع بها؟ وتصنع بها ماذا? The man said, أتزوج منها وأحج وأنفق على عيالي وأنيل إخواني وأتصدق. So what I do is I marry in this dunya, and I go to pilgrimage, and I spend money, I spend my wealth on my children, and I help my brothers and sisters, and I pay charity. You know what the Imam answered? He said, this is not dunya. This is akhirah. What you're doing, that's not loving dunya. That is actually akhirah. That's not loving this lowly, reprehensible world. That's actually working towards the afterlife. We need to learn to live this balanced life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, قُلْ مَنْ حَرَّمَ زِينَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي أَخْرَجَ لِعِبَادِهِ. Who forbade the good things that God has created in this world? Who prohibited this? You can enjoy, you can live your life, but make sure that you keep focus. Make sure that you do it for the sake of God. Make sure that you make it constructive. Make sure your intention is pure for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and live this world. Do your responsibilities. Do what you have to do. And inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would group you with those who are concerned about the akhirah, and not of those who are the ahlul dunya, or who are the people of the reprehensible, lowly world. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us remove every trace of the love for this world from our hearts, and to fill our hearts with love of Him and with concern for pleasing Him and Him alone. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Salawat.